Welcome back, brothers and sisters. I am Braden. The guy opposite my side here is Tim, and this is The Second Legacy, and thank you for stopping by. What we've got for you today is another piece of video evidence to support the idea that defending yourself is not that bad of an idea, even though government has promised it can't happen in the negative. Well, we're going to show you some more evidence to prove that point the contrary. But before we do that, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and make sure you turn that notification bell on. We would love to have you help us join Second Legacy and let it grow further and spread freedom across this amazing country. Now, we're going to say a quick word from our sponsor, LAS Concealment, and then we're going to show you these clips, and they're not going to disappoint. And the content today is brought to you by LAS Concealment. And if you're in the market for a holster for your favorite freedom tool, LAS Concealment is worth a look. They have everything that you could imagine, all molded from Kydex to your said freedom tool. Everything is fit directly to that model for a superior comfort and safety. They have inside and outside the waistband options, multiple designs, all sorts of different colors, and they are tested by the world's most elite special forces. Make sure you check it out. There's a link in the description box below, and thank you so much to LAS Concealment for making this content possible. All right, so thank you so much to LAS Concealment, as I mentioned. But Tim, let's get into this. We are going to go north of the border on this one, aren't we?
We are going to go up to the frozen north.
The Canada, eh?
Yeah, the land of gun control and crime-free cities, apparently.
Exactly.
At least that's the promise, right?
Exactly, because the promise is with no guns comes no crime. Therefore, if there's no guns, there can be no gun crime, right?
Right. All we need is some restrictions and, reasonable restrictions, and all of a sudden crime will go away. Let's see how that's worked out for the Canadians.
Exactly, for common sense gun reform. So just to set the table right, Tim, just for the viewers, because this is important, Mr. Producer, could you throw number 4 up there for me, just to revisit something so we can set the table in the bar here. Canada to ban import of handguns pending total freeze. Now, this thing was a big to-do in August of last year when Justin Trudeau came out and said, you know what, guns are a little not good. So we're going to get rid of rifles, and then we're going to get rid of handguns, and you don't really have a right for guns in Canada. You remember all that stuff, Tim? I think we covered on this channel a few times, right?
Oh, yeah. See, Canada doesn't have a Second Amendment or anything like it. Nope. So, the police and the government routinely just wake up one day and decide, we're going to ban entire classes of firearms. We're going to ban magazines. We're going to ban the imports. We're going to ban. And most Americans would, if you asked them if Canada was known for crime, they would say, no, it's a peaceful country compared to us.
Correct.
Is it really, though?
Is it? Well, we're going to walk into a clip right now, and here's the full-on disclaimer. The clips that we're about to show you are and can be a little bit disturbing for some people, particularly if you have families or you've ever taken a walk down a street. Okay, so with that disclaimer said, we're going to break this down and show you why it's so crucial for your gun rights, for self-defense, and to be situationally aware. All right, so with that out of the way, Mr. Producer, could you hit number 1 for me? Let's set this up right.
Edmonton police are searching for a gunman who opened fire on a man out walking with his family, including 2 children in strollers. Here's our David Owasik tonight with video of that shooting.
Neighbors heard the unmistakable sounds of gunfire last weekend on West Edmonton's Ormsby Crescent.
Well, basically, the wife and I were sitting outside on the front porch, and we heard pop, pop, and then pop, pop, pop.
A surveillance camera captured a young family with 2 kids in strollers out for an early evening walk around 6:45 Saturday night. Then this.
It was reported to police that an adult male complainant was out for an early evening walk with his young family, and a red Nissan Rogue pulled up behind them on Ormsby Crescent. 2 masked suspects ran from the vehicle and began chasing the complainant while firing multiple gunshots at him.
The gunman can be seen running off camera and then into this park after the apparent target, but somehow none of the bullets struck the fleeing man. Police say the man who was targeted is known to law enforcement and is not cooperating with the investigation. By showing video of the blatant disregard for the woman and her children, investigators hope someone in the public will bring forward information.
Obviously, we want any witness information, other video in the area. It's a large neighborhood. But we also want to showcase to not only the public for transparency, but also to these groups and other groups, when they decide to come out and do reckless behavior like this is the potential consequences that could happen.
Police say one of the weapons used has been matched to another shooting earlier this year. In that case and this one, no one was injured. Anyone with information about the masked shooters or the red Nissan Rogue vehicle is asked to contact police. David Owasik, CTV News, Edmonton.
All right. So at a very high level, Tim, what do we got? We've got multiple assailants. Mm-hmm. We have a getaway driver. We have a drive up and dump out. Does this sound like an everyday owner of a firearm, or does this sound like something a little more organized?
I'm going to go ahead and go out on a limb here and say these folks are probably career criminals. Perhaps even members of some sort of, organized crime group, a gang, if you will, because it certainly looks like a hit. Now, the first video clip is a little bit tight. You basically just see two guys bailing out of a Nissan and firing guns, but there's a lot more to this video.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And as we get in here, and we'll throw these clips in here, I guess, in post-production as well, but at the high level, you're looking at a family walking down the street, some assailants, let's be nice, some assailants dump out of a vehicle masked with firearms in a full gun control zone where handguns have been banned and import is impossible and transfer is also impossible. And somehow we see this happen. This doesn't make sense, Tim.
No, they should have been saved by gun control. Reasonable restrictions.
The reasonable ones. Only the reasonable ones, though.
Let's play the next clip because it's a little wider angle and you can see the family that's being attacked by these two guys bailing out of the car.
All right. Number 2, Mr.
Who was
Producer.
targeted is known to law enforcement and is not cooperating with the investigation. By showing video of the blatant disregard for the woman and her children, investigators hope someone in the public will bring forward information.
Obviously, we want any witness information, other video in the area. It's a large neighborhood. But we also want to showcase to not only the public for transparency, but also to these groups and other groups when they decide to come out and do reckless behavior like this is the potential consequences that could happen.
Okay. So contrast that, Tim, with what we covered yesterday that happened in Las Vegas, where we had an assailant walking in or out of a hotel. We're still deciding on that one. I think it was on the way out. But quite different outcomes. In one case, a guy straight up expects it almost. It looks like he's reacting like, oh, there's those guys I should be looking out for, and leaves his family behind and sprints into the woods.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, there's a lot in that video clip. So this paints a little bit more color in terms of trying to figure out what's going on here. So we have a guy and a woman, 2 strollers walking down the street. Car pulls up, 2 guys bail out, guns drawn, start blazing away at the guy. Now, it doesn't appear that they've targeted the woman. Now, it's also interesting to note that they report that the victim in this, the guy that was pushing the stroller and took off running from the gunman, he's not cooperating with the police. That can mean one of 2 things. Either he's part of a criminal group himself, and he doesn't, he figures he'll just take care of this himself. Him and his group will take care of this themselves, and they don't want to be known as rats or snitches. Or this person is scared, right? This person doesn't want to talk to the police for fear of retaliation or retribution on top of what's already happened to them. So we don't really know, right? The news report doesn't say. So you can draw a couple different conclusions from that. But what is obvious is that, first of all, he's not in a position to defend himself because he's unarmed, because Canada doesn't have self-defense laws. They don't have concealed carry. You don't carry weapons in Canada to defend yourself. So you're really, his only recourse in all of this is to try to get away from the gunman. But he sprints away from his wife and his children, and the gunmen take off after him. It's just crazy to watch.
Well, it's a lot of those answers are going to be answered in the next clip. But before we get to that one, absolutely, we're going to hear that in the. They
did say that the guy was known to police, which would imply that perhaps he was a criminal.
Exactly, he's known to police. So let's set up camp, like something that you just said that's really, really appropriate to what we deal with in the United States versus in Canada, right? So in Canada, you don't have that right. Justin Trudeau was very clear saying Canadians don't have the right for guns at all in this country. It's not there. Unlike the United States, which has the Second Amendment built onto the Constitution through the amendment process. Now, this is the big key difference. If you were, number one, if you were involved in crime, it's a little bit different scenario, but let's just say that this was you watching this video, walking down the street with your family. Would you rather have to be able to, or be forced to run away from your family while people were actually discharging firearms near your family at you, or would you have situational awareness, be able to be trained and stop a threat? I'm not encouraging gunfights by any means, but I'm saying, like, if you put yourself in that same scenario, there's two very dramatic different outcomes that are coming from this. And like I said, if you look back at the Las Vegas attempted shooting that we covered yesterday, or you look at Greenbrier Mall where a concealed carry took down a shooter, all these scenarios, there's two pretty distinct outcomes. And the one big common thread is when people meet resistance, they tend to stop. Doesn't always work, but it's a lot better than running. That's my take.
Now let's just assume that the guy isn't a criminal and, isn't being targeted by a rival criminal group or something, that he's just a guy and his wife walking down the street with their kids, and out of the blue, they're just, assaulted.
Yeah.
Now, if he were able to defend himself, if he were in the United States and he was in a state that had stand your ground, castle doctrine, all those protective laws that insulate the victims and protect the victims when they decide to defend themselves, if he had access to all that, you're absolutely correct. If you pull a weapon and start shooting back, that's going to disrupt your attackers. They're going to seek cover. They're going to, unless they're just dumb, and then that's entirely possible too. You can't always predict what people are going to do, but generally speaking, that's the whole purpose of things like cover fire and stuff like that. Once you start receiving inbound rounds, the human instinct of self-preservation generally kicks in, and it stops the assault. Right? They're going to automatically go seek cover and either flee the scene or try to seek cover, giving you time to get away. So yeah, I mean, the worst possible outcome is to be completely defenseless and having this happen to you. Now, it's a miraculous outcome in that he wasn't hit. So they were firing at him. He sprinted away. They sprinted after him, firing guns. You can hear them continue shooting at him in the audio and the video. But then they go on to say that, this isn't the only instance. There have been other shootings in this area. And once again, nobody was hit. So are they shooting blanks? There's really bad marksmen.
What's going on? I mean, goodness gracious. But before we move to the next clip, there's something else that we can address that's a pretty stark contrast as well, right? So the reason that we cover these things is they're really good examples of real life scenarios where we can break it down to say this is where it would be really helpful to be a Second Amendment enabled country or state. So, for example, duty to retreat laws. When you have duty to retreat laws, like Tim was just mentioning, stand your ground, castle doctrine, all those things, those are victim protecting. In the duty to retreat laws, which are typically found in blue states, those are laws that say you cannot defend yourself with lethal force unless you have absolutely zero recourse to get away. You have a duty to retreat before you go on the offense. In this scenario, if he had defended himself in a blue state, exact same scenario, he'd be under penalty because he could run away into the woods like he did. In a red state or conservative state, you fire back in that exact same scenario and you're standing your ground. In Florida, that's perfectly legal.
They can't bring charges against you. Yep.
Right.
This video would exonerate that person completely.
But it depends. That's the craziest part. Blue versus red is where the distinction lies, not the outcome.
And I would say that the people that support stupid laws like duty to retreat, they've never been a victim of crime. I would imagine once they became a victim of crime, their opinions might change. And so here you have people that have never experienced crime, that have never, been forced into a self-defense situation, setting policy for those who have. It just seems silly. Exactly you're taking people that know nothing about the topic and applying their, laws and desires on people that, need to protect themselves. It's mind-boggling to me. And this isn't uncommon globally, right? You take a look at European nations, even Canada. Many times, you, as the victim, will be charged with a crime if you make any effort to defend yourself. If that person were to pull his own weapon, well, now he's a criminal because he had a weapon concealed, and now he's going to face time. If that person picked up a stick and started beating the gunman with the stick, he could face charges in some jurisdictions.
Correct.
So it's just unbelievable that any civilized country would take the position that you have a duty to be a victim. It's not a duty to retreat. You have a duty to be a victim. You have a duty to soak up rounds and to be beaten, stabbed, assaulted in any number of different ways. Because if you actually fight back, well, that makes you the bad person. What kind of logic is that?
It's not logic. But that's the interesting part about this. And I know we're on a bit of a tangent on this, but it's a good point to sit on. It's almost like, and this is just a hypothetical, but it's almost like the state wants everything to happen as it was going to happen with nothing to intervene so that they can have a clean, clear execution of jurisprudence or prosecution. It's like, well, this person broke in, he had a deadly weapon, he did use that deadly weapon, so now we're going to charge him because he committed the felony. But in the scenario you're describing, like Canada, for example, we covered a story where a kid defended his mother, and the kid was in trouble because he used the gun to defend his mother.
Yeah.
I mean, you remember that story? It's the exact same thing. So now they have two people they're going after. It's almost like the state is not concerned with what transpires. They're only concerned with solving the outcome. It's not about the individuals involved. It is about the overall net. And that is what's really concerning. But we have a third clip, Tim, which kind of puts a nice bow on all this. You ready for it?
Yeah, let's play her.
All right. Get it, Mr. Producer.
Police say one of the weapons used has been matched to another shooting earlier this year. In that case, and this one, no one was injured. Anyone with information about the masked shooters or the red Nissan Rogue vehicle is asked to contact police.
So we kind of had some conjecture about this before we filmed this. They either used the bullet casings and they matched it, or they got a bullet out and they looked at the striations and they matched it. I mean, they didn't drop a gun. There's no report of them like doing burner guns and just kind of throwing them on the ground.
Maybe it was like a bad Leslie Nielsen movie, and they ran out of ammo in the clipazine and chucked the gun at the guy.
Just chucked the gun. It's possible. But so, I mean, it is possible. So now let's back this out a little bit. There's a reason we use this last. So you have another instance earlier this year where the exact same gun was used in a similar attempted crime where no one was hurt. So now we've got two incomplete crimes, and we've got an individual who is known to police and is not cooperating, and we have what looks like a drive-by shooting against an individual, and the individual runs away almost like they're expecting it. Now that we've seen all the pieces,
they have a problem up there in Canada.
Seems like something's a little weird, particularly since the entire argument that Biden will use, Harris will use, all the Democrats in Congress will use in the United States. They'll say, if only we had laws like Canada. And after all, the epidemic of gun violence is the scourge upon the American population, even though they admit it's only certain neighborhoods and it's repeat offenders that are consistently being left out of jail. It's the exact same thing we're seeing in this story, Tim.
Yep, it is. Well, it's the exact same thing that, we see in the United States, far left policies that enable criminals. That create this mess. And I've said before, and I'll stand by it, I honestly believe governments allow this to go on, encourage this to go on, purposely don't try to solve the problem because it enables them to get their agenda pushed forward, right? If they enabled victims and they did pass reasonable gun control laws, meaning there aren't any, you're able to defend yourself, you're able to buy whatever it is you deem necessary to defend yourself with, and that stopped crime, well, that guts their argument. But we already know it works. We can go back to what I've talked about previously, where Florida was just plagued with crime. And so running out of options, they said, you know what, let's just give guns to the people. So they passed a concealed carry law, and lo and behold, crime plummeted.
Fell like a rock.
That angered the anti-gunners. You can't do that. It's the same people who stand out there and tell you can't put armed guards in schools. It doesn't make sense.
Why not?
It makes more sense not to protect them? Are you saying we should pull guards out of government buildings, out of airports because they just don't work? It's an asinine argument, but this is what governments do. And it's by design. They're allowing this chaos to go on so they can push their agendas forward. They don't want to stop the chaos because we know how to stop the chaos.
Well,
they say we're crazy.
Well, yeah, but that's the thing. So I think this applies to, and you're kind of going into broader topics of government involvement and government narratives and all those different things. But what I'll say on that is it tends to look at, as you get older, and as you get older, you look at things and you go, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. If we knew how to fix that, why would we not fix it? It's almost like if they continue the problem, keeping it going, whatever that problem would be, there's always a need for them to be solving something. It's almost like they're encouraging their own existence, because if there's no problems, we don't need them. And we can't have that because that's their salaries and that's their careers and that's their corruption and that's all of their little inside sweetheart deals. It really is, when you look at it, kind of gross. That's as far as I'll go on that.
Yeah, we'll just leave it with
it's kind of gross. It's kind of gross.
So, if you guys have any more information about this incident in Canada, comment down below. We do stick around and read those comments. And we also have a really interesting call-in show. If you guys would like to be part of the call-in show, there is a link in the video description below. Follow that link, and we'll get you on the show. Have a great conversation. Thank you for watching, and we'll talk to you guys soon.